and welcome. I am Ashley Torian, your host for Ashley's Heart Song on the Win-Win Women TV platform. This is the place where we get out of the stress and back into our body, our life, and our business. Because when we tap into the song of our heart, that is when we master the mind and the stress that steals our life. Y'all, today starts a series that I'm going to do through the summer that is on your greatest power. This is one of my all-time favorite books. If you went to Abilene Christian University, you probably read it. I believe it was one of those must-have-tos in one of the classes that you take. And this book is by J. Martin Kohe. And here is my copy. This book was written back in the 50s. It is now part of the Napoleon Hill Foundation. It's a brilliant book. I love it. And what we're going to do in this series is I am going to read a segment. It's like a chapter a week, and then we'll have a discussion with the live audience around it. So if you would love to hear more about this, then get in on the live discussion with us. And yeah, so it is going to be a reading. I'll be reading the chapter. And so this is going to be one of those series that's going to be really good where you don't even have to watch anything, right? It's like a podcast. You just get to hear it and to really absorb the material that the writer is conveying. All right, so let's do our vitality score real quick though before we get rolling. I believe that it will be really cool to get your vitality score today. And we'll do it every week, but then on week 5 of the series, it will be really fun to see what kind of changes occurred because of this concept that the writer is giving us. All right, vitality score. Maximum points is 40. We're starting with your spiritual self today. Spiritually, do you feel in alignment on a scale of 1 to 10? Where are you spiritually today? 10 being you are aligned, you are smooth, you're rocking it. You're connected. 1, you're disconnected. You're a little in the dumps. Where are you spiritually? 1 to 10. Now let's go into physical body. Physically, where are you on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being physically, you are strong. You feel so good today. To a 1 being, oh, the body feels fatigued. You feel yucky in your own skin. That's going to be somewhere around the 1. Write your number down, and we're moving into your mental body. Mentally, where are you today? Are you sharp and on point? You're going to be scored closer to a 10. Or do you feel scattered? Scattered, maybe a little mentally overwhelmed. You feel like the brain is busy, chit-chatting, talking. That's going to be anywhere from that 1 to 5. Then let's move into our emotional body. Where are you today? Are you feeling very centered, grounded in your emotions? Do you feel balanced, at ease? Or emotionally, are you feeling a little edgy, a little moody, a little off course? That's going to be from that 1 to 5. Put down your score, tally it up, and now you know at the start of this summer series around your greatest power, you have a starting point. You know where you're at. Because what you're going to learn from this book, we've talked about many times. I bring this book up a lot in my coaching, but we've talked about it. We talked about this, but really in the way that he is going to bring it around to your awareness, oh, so powerful. So let's just get started. This is so fun. All right, Your Greatest Power by J. Martin Kohe. And that's Kohe. Your Right to Choose this is an introduction by Don M. Green, and he is a part of the Napoleon Hill Foundation. We all have choices to make on a daily basis, and the sum total of these choices defines our station in life. Our choices determine if we are part of society's ills or an instrument in the solutions that will help make the world a better place in which we live. J. Martin Kohe, the author of Your Greatest Power, reveals the secret that will help you find peace of mind, happiness, good health, and success. This is a valuable motivational book for those willing to read, study, and apply the message. The choice is yours. Your greatest power, discovering it. You are the possessor of a great and wonderful power. This power, when properly applied, will bring confidence instead of timidity, calmness instead of confusion, poise instead of restlessness, and a peace of mind in place of a heartache. Millions of people are complaining about their lot, disgusted with life and the way things are going, not realizing there is a power which they possess, which will permit them to take a new lease on life. Once you recognize this power and begin to use it, you can change your entire life and make it the way you would like to have it. A life that was filled with sorrow can be filled with joy. Failure can be turned into success. Where poverty once gripped an individual's life, it can be changed to prosperity. Timidity can be turned into confidence. A life of disappointment can become a life of interesting experiences and pleasant associations. Fear can be changed to freedom. Too many times as life goes on, a person may have a number of reverses. He may have run into a series of difficulties. He may even have had a number of various troubles to contend with. Before long, he adopts the attitude that life is difficult, that life is a battle, that the cards are stacked against him. So what's the use? You can't win. Then the same individual settles back and is convinced that no matter what you do is no good. Beaten in his own desire to win in life, he finally turns to his children, hoping that with them it will be different. Sometimes this is the way out, and sometimes the children fall into the same way of life as the parent. Many times the individual comes to the conclusion that there is only one way out, and he finally comes to the end of life through his own hand, suicide. Yet all this time, the individual fails to discover this great power that will change his life. He doesn't recognize it. He doesn't even know it exists. He sees millions of others struggling the way he is and decides that this is life. Raimondo Novizzi tells a story that when the great library of Alexandria was burned, one book was saved. But it was not a valuable book. And so a poor man who could read a little bought it for a few coppers. It was not very interesting. Yet there was a most interesting thing in it. It was a thin strip of vellum on which was written the secret of the touchstone. The touchstone was a small pebble that could turn any common metal into gold. The writing explained that it was on the shores of the Black Sea, lying among thousands and thousands of other pebbles, which looked exactly like it. But the secret was this: the real stone would feel warm, while ordinary pebbles are cold. So the man sold his few belongings, bought some simple supplies, camped on the seashore, and began testing pebbles. This was his plan. He knew that if he picked up ordinary pebbles and threw them down again because they were cold, he might pick up the same pebble hundreds of times. He spent the whole day doing this, and there were none of them the touchstone. Then he spent a week, a month, a year, 3 years, but he did not find the touchstone. Yet he went on and on this way. Pick up a pebble. It's cold. Throw it into the sea, and so on and so on. But one morning, he picked up a pebble, and it was warm, and he threw it into the sea. He had formed the habit of throwing them into the sea. He had gotten so into the habit of throwing them into the sea that when the one he wanted came along, he still threw it away. Oh, how many times have we contacted this great power and did not recognize it? How many times have we had this great power right in our hands and we threw it away because we didn't recognize it? How often have we seen it before our very eyes? How many times have we seen this great power demonstrated right before us? And yet we did not see it with all its possibilities, with all its wonder-working effects. That is the reason we have devoted this entire treatise to this great power, the greatest power that man possesses. Conwell, in his book, Acres of Diamonds, tells about a farmer who was a very happy farmer. His farm was all paid off. He had a very, very lovely family. Each year, he managed to save some money from his plantings. He wasn't short of anything to make his life worthwhile and happy. However, one day, a traveler came along and said to the farmer, "If you will find a place where water runs over white sand, there you will find diamonds. Your daughter will be richer than any princess. Your son will be richer than any prince, and you will have all the wealth that you could possibly imagine." That night, this farmer did not sleep for the first time in many months. He rolled and tossed and turned. Finally, when dawn broke, he decided he would sell his farm and go out and search for diamonds. This he did. He put his family in with one of the neighbors, took his money, and went all over the world searching for diamonds. Finally, when he came down to his last few cents, thoroughly disgusted with himself, what he had done, he committed suicide. In the meantime, the traveler returned to the farm. He walked into the house, looked up on the mantelpiece, and exclaimed, "Did the original owner of the farm return?" The new owner said, "No, he did not." The traveler said, "He must have. Why, those stones up there on the mantelpiece are diamonds." "Oh, no," exclaimed the new owner of the farm. "That's impossible. I found those stones out in the backyard." The traveler again assured the new owner, "Yes, those are diamonds." That is the way of the Kimberley diamond mines in Africa were founded. Certainly, you see the point of the story. We search all over the world looking for diamonds, and still, there they are, right in our own backyards. We search all through our lives for that power which will make our lives complete. But most people never find it. Yet, it is right before us. All we have to do is recognize it and start to use it. It's here. Before we tell you what this great power is, we want you to know about another story that took place in Africa. There was an explorer who went into the wilds of Africa. He took a number of trinkets along with him for the natives. Among some of the things that he took with him were 2 full-size mirrors. He placed these 2 mirrors against 2 different trees, and then he sat down to talk to some of his men about the exploration. Then the explorer noticed that a savage approached the mirror with his spear in his hand. As he looked into the mirror, he saw his reflection. He began to jab his opponent in the mirror as though it were a real savage, going through all the motions of killing him. Of course, he broke the mirror into bits. In the meantime, pardon me. In the meantime, the explorer walked over to the savage and asked him why he smashed the mirror. The native replied, "He go kill me. I kill him first." The explorer explained to the savage that that was not the purpose of the mirror, and then led the savage over to the second mirror. He explained to him, "Look, the mirror is an object whereby you may see if your hair is combed straight, to see if the paint on your face is proper, to see how chesty you are, and see how muscular you are." The savage replied, "Oh, me no know." So it is with so many millions of people. They go through life fighting it. They expect a battle at every turn, and that is the way it turns out. They expect to have enemies, and they certainly do. They expect to have one difficulty after another, and that is exactly the way it happens. If it isn't one thing, it's another. And there is always something. And that is the way it has been and will continue to be for millions of people who fail to recognize this great power. This great power that could completely change the world remains as hidden as the diamonds from the farmer who had them in his own backyard. Millions of people will continue to live plain, ordinary, miserable lives because this great power escapes them, and they never have been able to catch up with it. You can't fight life. You have tried it. Millions have tried it and have failed. Then what is the answer? The answer is that we must understand life if we wish to make the most of it. The amazing part about this power is that anyone and everyone can use it. It doesn't require any special training or education. It isn't a power that requires any special aptitudes to make it work successfully. It isn't a power that anyone has any special claims to, nor does it require wealth or prestige to make it work. It is a power that everyone is given at birth, whether he be rich or poor, successful or unsuccessful, whether he be born on the right side of the tracks or not. The sooner we recognize this power, the quicker we get on the main road and stay there. The more of us who will get on the main road and stay there, the more hope will spring into the hearts of others to follow this healthy pattern of life. Millions of people fail to realize that when they go into a shoe store, they may choose to buy a pair of black shoes or a pair of brown shoes. That when they go into a clothing store, they choose to buy a light garment or they choose to buy a dark garment. That when they turn on the radio, they may choose to tune into one station, or they may tune in to another station. That when they go into an ice cream parlor, they may choose to buy a chocolate sundae or a pineapple soda. That when they go into the movies, they may choose to go to a neighborhood movie, or they may choose to go to a downtown movie. Yes, it is true. If you choose, when you go on vacation, to go to the seashore instead of to go to the mountains, that you made this choice. When you buy a car, you choose to buy a car of one particular make, or you choose to buy a car of another manufacturer. In other words, the greatest power that a person possesses is the power to choose. Yes, you have this power. Regardless of your religious beliefs, you choose the shoes, the car, the radio program, the picture show, the vacation, the mate. You have this power. There was nothing outside of yourself to force you to make the decision that you did. You did it because you have made this choice. You made this choice because you wanted it so. If the choice was bad, then of course we want something or someone to blame. So some people will say, it's God's will, but was it? You're probably familiar with the old saying, God helps those that help themselves. Regardless of what we believe regarding God, God does not give each and every man the right to help him. God does give each and every man the right to help himself, or in other words, the right to choose. Henry Drummond, in his book, The Greatest Thing in the World, tells a story of a little boy who was very sick. The boy was going to die. The parents were very much upset about it, and yet there was nothing the doctors could do. One day, an elderly religious man walked into the house and noticed how depressed everyone was. He asked why they were so downhearted. He was told that their little son was very sick, and they expected the little fella to die. The religious man asked where the boy was, and he was told which bedroom to go to. The elderly religious man walked into the bedroom, put his hand on the little fella's head, and said, "My boy, God loves you. Don't you know that?" And walked out of the room, then shortly afterward left the home. After he had gone, the little fella who was sick and was going to die jumped out of bed, ran all over the house shouting, "God loves me! God loves me!" He no longer was sick, but a well, strong, and healthy boy. Here is a perfect illustration of what happens when a person chooses to believe that God loves him. No doubt the little fellow had done something which was wrong, certainly not anything punishable by death, but he evidently thought that God was willing to punish him. But once he made the realization that God loved him, he was no longer sick. The little fellow made use of that great power, the power to choose. It gave him life. It saved the family much sorrow and heartache. Too many people have the very bad habit of telling their children that God will punish them if they do something wrong. The child is filled with fear, the fear of God. He chooses to be afraid of God. The child goes into adult life, still with this fear. Is it any wonder that the average person's life is a shadow of what real living could be? He, in turn, does the same thing with his children. And so, century after century, this fear is perpetuated by parents who fail to understand that the power to choose can change their lives. If telling the child that God will punish him would prevent the evil doing, it would be all right, but look around you and you will see that it has not turned the trick. On the other hand, if we would realize that the wrongdoing itself carries with it its own punishment, then we will choose what is right. Because we will then know that it isn't God that is going to punish us, but it is our own bad choosing that carries the punishment with it. If we make the right choice in the first place, what can go wrong? For example, a woman who had a very lovely son was constantly in the habit of telling her little boy that if he did not do what was right, God would punish him. The result was that the little fellow was always having colds. The result, the mother was beside herself. She didn't know what to do. Then she learned that you don't say that to a child. You tell a child that God loves him. She explained this to the child, with the result that the child no longer had any colds. The mother was amazed and astounded. Here you can see, as long as the mother chose to tell her youngster that God would punish him, he was filled with colds. When she chose to tell her son that God loves you, the change came about. What brought about the change? Did God make the change? It was the mother who, in choosing the right idea of presenting God, changed her child's life and her own. We must therefore realize that there is nothing outside of ourselves to hurt us. God doesn't hurt us. God loves us. Therefore, what can hurt us? Only our own bad choosing. If we choose to eat so much that we make ourselves sick, who's to blame? If we choose to drive our cars so fast that we cannot control them, who's to blame? If we choose to allow ourselves to have nasty, disagreeable personalities, who is to blame? If we try to become the richest man in the cemetery and make ourselves invalids, who is to blame? If we have failed to learn how to live, whom shall we blame? God? Oh no, not anymore. God loves you. He doesn't hurt anybody. We hurt ourselves through the bad use of this great power that God gave us, the power to choose. That is the end of chapter 1. Next week, we're going to move into chapter 2. But what I would love to do is to have, I don't know, a discussion. So if you are part of the live audience, then you get to be in on the live discussion that we're going to have around this book. And I would love to invite you in for the remainder of the series to come into the live audience. So I will keep the live stream going and the recording going. And let's just dive in to see what kind of questions are popping in today. All right. If you are part of the live audience, you can unmute yourself if you have a question, would like to comment.
I don't think I've ever read this book.
And you went to ACU.
I know. I don't remember reading it. I mean, I remember some of the stories and it looks, yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see. I like it. It's funny the quote that I saw earlier today about um our days. So that I sent you.
Yes,
Um
beautiful.
I don't I mean I wrote down some of the things that you said, so I don't know that I don't know that I have a question. Um
Or
I
discussion. Mhm.
I do, it does break my heart, and I know that I do it, although I think I try not to. Um, the whole sea, the pebble thing, um, throwing away, I guess right now, maybe in my personal life, I don't want to get into that, but on a situation where I'm nervous about my choice, about my um, but being used to getting, seeing not what I want, and so, and how often do we do that? Do we throw away the good things that are there when um I don't know. Maybe it's not just that it doesn't feel right. We're afraid of it.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and when we've done an action over and over, and then we're wanting to do a new action, and we've got it in the palm of our hand to do something new, but it's like, wait a minute, this doesn't feel right. I'm used to doing that. The guy was used to throwing the stone back in the ocean. He was so used to that action that it became his autopilot response to everything.
Hmm.
And so when we have, and no matter what area of life we're looking at, when we lean into the patterns that created where we are today, and we
Hmm.
continue to lean into those, then what are we going to do? We're going to keep throwing that stone pebble back into the ocean instead of each thing being so present and in the moment, going, okay, and looking at this without any of the cloudings of the past, but looking at it like it's a one of those diamonds. It's a brand new stone. Each one was a brand new pebble that that guy could look at, but he didn't look at them as in each individual moment. He looked at them as a collective and just kept throwing from his
Yeah.
pattern. That's
Yeah.
what I was seeing. I thought it was so
Yes.
cool.
We do have a tendency to chunk things into the wheelbarrow and carry them around, and not, you know, I tripped when I got out of bed. I stabbed myself with the toothbrush. I can't find my keys. I left my phone at home. It's raining outside, and all of it's just boom, 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 instead of it's just one thing. It's not everything. It's just one thing. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I love that. We put it in that wheelbarrow and we carry it with us. And therefore, all of our reactions during the day are all based off of the 10 things we've collected versus the
Yes.
one thing in front of us. Isn't
Yeah.
that amazing how we do that?
Yes. And seems like it takes a whole lot more energy than it would be to let go of all that.
Yeah.
And just look at the one thing in front of us. Lots less energy to do one thing than to hold on to all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? So it almost comes to that when on the little story when it was talking about God loves you,
Hmm.
to the little boy, you know, that to me, that's that worthiness factor that we humans are continually bumping up against. Am I worthy
Hmm.
enough? Am I worthy enough? But when we have 10 things in our wheelbarrow that show us how clumsy we are, what a stupid thing that we did, or whatever, then that just reinforces our feeling of unworthiness and unworthy of God's love.
Yes.
And I think that's what we're reacting to in our life versus let's just get rid of this stump my toe, bump my head, drop my keys
Yeah.
that I left in the wheelbarrow. Let's just release that. And let's just move into this possibility.
Yeah. I am anxious. I am the whole power to choose thing. I am 100% behind that. Um, I see so many, and I know that I sometimes choose that, but I'm thinking right now of young people who are struggling with, I don't know, trying to grow up or find their way or whatever, and they don't see that. I guess all of us, we don't see how easy that is. We think it's easier to blame or to, I don't know. Yeah, how I'm anxious to see what the book has to say, the rest of it about the choosing, and how do we convince ourselves that it's easy to do. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. Um, but sometimes it's hard.
Well, and I think the one guarantee we have is that if it does end up being the bad choice, the wrong choice, we get to go through the 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 punishment for having made that choice, and we get to learn.
Yeah.
We get
And we
to,
get to choose to see that as good.
yeah. So isn't that, if we could just see that was good, Jamie. That was good. Yeah, it's again taking that one pebble look at each failure, at each thing when we make a decision, that we look at it on its own and not in this collective wheelbarrow of things that we did wrong, but in the,
Mhm,
okay, let's just address this one thing that we did wrong.
mhm.
Wow.
Was talking with my son about choosing a couple of weeks ago. He he has a tendency to choose the negative. And so we were talking about having the choice to choose that. And he brought up I'm not even going to repeat what he said because it was so extreme, but he brought up an extreme situation, something bad. I mean, like really traumatic that happened to someone, and said, so you're going to tell me that it's their choice that they saw this awful thing happen? It's their choice, how they're feeling about that or viewing that. And I was like, I mean, in that kind of thing, I mean, you see a terrible car accident, or your dog dies, or there are things. There is a death in your family. These are the traumatic things, and so they're things that make us sad or feel helpless or whatever. And I personally believe that those are a different thing, and that's not the same kind of choosing. So again, I'm anxious to see what the book says about confronting those kinds of situations or people when you're talking with them about the power to choose. Because even in that, I mean, I know I had a stillbirth. My daughter was stillborn, and I was depressed for a really long time. And my favorite person in the whole wide world said, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and go on. And that broke my heart. But I realize now, especially when I look back on, I'm like, that was exactly right. Yes, it was an awful thing. I wish my daughter was here. And I'm not saying that anyone going through that is needs to choose today, if it happened today, to get through it. But we do have that choice to decide how long, how long will I be in my hole about this? How long, or even how am I going to grieve? How am I going to remember? How am I going to go on? Each of those things are a choice. Sometimes though it's really hard. Those kinds of things are really hard.
I would think so. Yes. Yes. But you're right though. We have a choice inside all of that. How are we going to do it? I love that you brought that up. How am I going to do this for the highest good of me?
Mhm.
How am I going to do this? And then how long will I allow myself to be inside of it? Because you're right, there is that grieving process that we have to go through.
We
I
have
mean,
to.
otherwise, it will continue to haunt you the rest of your life. So, yeah, when it comes to grief, we go through that process. And I've heard it's an 18-month process. It doesn't mean you're magically healed of grief at 18, but it's that
Right.
process, very slow
Hmm.
process. And
Yeah.
I think that's beautiful, to be able to realize, wow, it is 18 months before you really feel like you are back to the
Hmm.
land of the living. And yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, in that particular situation, when anniversaries come along, not every year, but on occasion, they can swack me upside of the head. And I think, wow. And so a very wise woman taught me to be in the moment. So I can be in that, but not let it, but then I can choose to think about all the good things that have happened since then, or because of the people I've met, the people I've been able to talk to and help. Um, the closeness that it brought the rest of my family together. Um, so I could remember the day in the hospital and the grief of I could remember all that, but that's a choice. That's a
Mhm.
choice to do that or to find the joy. I
Wow.
like joy a lot better.
Feels better. Feels so
It's
much.
yeah,
Wow.
yes.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. Yeah,
mm,
I believe this book is going to bring some great discussions within for each person.
mhm,
And I love that he puts in the book that this has a great power to transform. He didn't use that word transform for each person that allows it to do so in their life. So if we choose to really allow these chapters to integrate themselves within us,
mm,
and for this week, for us to be thinking and noticing what choices we're making at every given moment, because you're making a choice at every
mhm,
given moment
mhm.
of your life.
Yes,
And
yes.
so, are you feeling fatigued today? Was that a choice?
As I stayed up late last night.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what am I going to do? Am I going to fuel my body with some extra caffeine and some sugar and some wake up juice in order to bring myself energy? That's one choice that I could do, which propels the bad choice of staying up late,
Mhm.
right? Or, no, in this moment, I'm going to do something that my body needs that will actually give it energy, which would be what? What could I do that would give my body energy? That's not
Breathe,
false
walk,
energy, but pure.
breathe, walk,
Breathe, walk, eat an apple,
eat an apple.
eat an orange,
How about a nectarine?
or a
A
nectarine.
nectarine. Okay, I'm sorry, I have a question. I started to write down something that you said, and I'm just imagining that your book is highlighted. And is it?
It's not, well, it
Oh,
depends on which one. The written is.
yeah,
Okay, so
the
yes,
written one. So he said something, you can't fight life, and I wanted to write the rest of that down, but I was going on listening to the rest of what was being said.
I remember that, and that was in capital letter.
Oh, great.
Yeah, he writes with a lot of capital letters.
With feeling and gusto.
Yeah, he says millions of people, well, let's see, where do I want to start this? This great power that could completely change the world remains as hidden as the diamonds from the farmer who had them in his own backyard. Millions of people will continue to live plain, ordinary, miserable lives because this great power escapes them and they never have been able to catch up with it. You can't fight life. You have tried it. Millions have tried it and failed. Then what is the answer? The answer is that we must understand life if we wish to make the most of it. That's probably the
Hmm.
part you were wanting.
Yeah, we must understand life.
If
Oh,
we wish to make
goodness.
the most of it. Yeah.
And what's understanding it? That it's our choice, I guess.
I'm thinking that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's our choice to fight life, but there's no sense in it because it's just going to keep going.
Hmm.
We can't stop it. We can't do anything. So we might as well just choose not to fight life and choose to live life. So fun.
Great. Thank you for finding that for me.
You're
I knew
welcome.
you'd be able to do that.
You are welcome. Yeah. Yeah. Next week is all about choosing wealth.
Okay.
Yeah. We have choosing wealth, choosing your personality, choosing conditions, and choosing happiness will be the way that this unfolds.
Okay.
Yeah. 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 Awesome.
Like
Yay.
it.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Well, I will. Oh, yes, you're welcome. I am going to change this up. Yes, so y'all, that is our discussion around your greatest power. I'm so happy that you joined us. Please join us next week as we continue this journey of learning more about our greatest power and how we can integrate it into our lives. This has been Ashley's Heart Song on the WinWinWomen.tv network. Join us next week as we continue to armor up our lives. See you then.